Why wasn't Lockhart fired after trying to fix Harry's arm? Hagrid said that Lockhart was literally the only applicant for the Defense Against the Dark Arts job. By this time, people were aware that it was cursed. Lockhart had a spectacular form of job security, known as nobody else was available to do it. On top of that, the ease with which wizards can heal injuries means they treat them with a much more blasé attitude. The real story of the series was the missing HR department of Hogwarts. In defense of Dumbledore, I do think that it's very hard to fire a teacher at a school like that midterm and then try to fill that role, but like you said, a lot of it is just plot-related. And he had a near impossible time trying to fill the role that year, so he probably didn't have a good backup. Unless Lockhart did something just absolutely egregious, getting caught obliviating students would have been such a thing. He was probably going to be safe. Dumbledore is completely out of dark arts professors. Lockhart was the absolute bottom of the barrel. I have no one else I can hire. The next two people after Lockhart are Dumbledore's close friends and members of the Order of the Phoenix. After that, the Ministry has to step in and hire the next teacher. Dumbledore even knows Lockhart is manipulating memories as he makes the comment that Gilderoy fell on his own sword when his spell backfired onto him. Not sure Lockhart could have been fired. Dumbledore put a man-eating Cerberus behind a door that a first year could magic open. Hogwarts is a safe place to hide your valuables, but not to send your children. You're in a quirky, posh, British boarding school set in the 90s, but strongly inspired by the 70s. That's more cultural baggage to unload than all the magical stuff put together. If there is no one else willing to teach, a warm body with a pulse is better than no teacher at all. If you're in the workforce, you will eventually encounter people that make you scratch your head and wonder how the heck they remain employed. Harry Potter is a 7-book series about child endangerment. While Lockhart's actions in banishing Harry's bones were those of an idiot, it was an easily reversible situation, as well as did not remotely reflect on his knowledge of data. Lockhart wasn't there as a meta-wizard or expected to be an expert on such matters, so his screw-up didn't necessarily detract from his assumed skills as a teacher. If it had been someone like Draco Malfoy whose father would have made a fuss, he'd perhaps have gotten fired, but otherwise I doubt it's seen as a fireable offense. Dumbledore, at the beginning of each year, explains the way the kids can die. As someone in academia, you'd be surprised how hard it can be to be fired in academia. Impaled upon your own sword, Gilderoy. I can't attest to why, but Dumbledore knew he was a fraud. It was the only applicant and they needed a teacher. There are theories out there as to why Dumbledore made this choice. But all I can say is that is why he kept his job. Dumbledore wanted him to. Better question is why couldn't Dumbledore lift that curse? He's supposed to be more powerful than Voldy and has the Elder Wand. He seems to just play along a lot, like in the cave, when he should be able to remove those charms. One of the most realistic things about Hogwarts: bad teachers keep their jobs. Why wasn't Hagrid fired for a hippogriff mauling Malfoy? Why wasn't Moody fired for the use of unforgivable curses, or abusing a student with transfiguration? Why wasn't Trelawney fired for giving unsubtle death threats to students? Why wasn't Snape fired for terrorizing students for a decade? Why wasn't Madame Hooch fired for falling asleep while guarding Harry from a dangerous maniac, or only teaching one lesson in her entire tenure with Harry at Hogwarts? Dumbledore doesn't tend to fire P. The Dada teaching position was cursed by Voldemort, preventing any teacher from being able to keep the job for more than a year. It's Dumbledore's job primarily to fill the role, but if he is unable, then the job goes to the governors or the Ministry to fill. The governors have been corrupted by the power and wealth of Malfoy, and the Ministry is always looking for a way to influence Hogwarts. Dumbledore would rather an idiot that he knows isn't being controlled by Death Eaters or the Ministry TAC. Once my uncle got his finger broken by his gym teacher, trying to show him how to properly hold a ball when short putting. He pulled the ball so hard he gave my uncle an open fracture. Then he put a band-aid on the piece of bone sticking out of my uncle's hand and sent him on his merry way. That was in the late 80s. My grandpa tried to sue, but the gym teacher wasn't fired as far as I know. So, yeah, I believe it. Why wasn't he fired after losing control of pixies during class and abandoning literal children by hiding in his office? Imagine going to school one day and the teacher says, "Here's a bunch of feral cats. Good luck, fuckers," and then just leaves, locking the door behind them. I always thought that Hogwarts operated on the principle that nobody in admin really gave a single shit. You got Snape bullying, kids deal with dangers and OSHA violations on a Dile level. They play murder ball. There is a huge dark forest with all kinds of shit, and not as much as a fence to keep students out. But what do you expect of people whose notion of fun times is having kids face off with dragons and staring at a lake for an hour? What's the alternative? Not teach data that year? Why would he? He's accidentally harmed a child in a place where you're allowed to do so intentionally. I want to know how he managed to fool Dumbledore in the first place and got the job. I feel like one conversation with him should have been enough. Well, TBF, it can sometimes happen. He was pretty clear about that. Why didn't Harry just fly on the Eagles to Mordor and drop the Horcruxes in MT Doom? Because she didn't write it.